Hi, hello, I'm Sam Harrison. I read, review, and discuss fantasy and science fiction books. And today we have a discussion on what new releases I would like to read by the end of the year, by the end of 2024. So all of these are 2024 new releases. 2 of them have released already, and then I think we have I've got my list here. Let's get the list up so I'm not just guessing. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but you'll know that because it's probably the title of the video. 2 of the books have already released, and then 5 of them have yet to come out. Now, one of them, I'm sure you can guess what it is. That's a bad way of saying it. I'm sure you can guess what one of them is, but I'm going to go through them in date order, so that one's going to be last. First up, I have the sequel to Infinity Gate, Echo of Worlds by M.R. Carey. Now I'm going to put the cover up there, hopefully somewhere. I'm going to keep pointing. Hopefully the cover's in there. This is Echo of Worlds. It's the second book in the Pandemonium series. It came out on the 25th of June. I had only just finished reading the first book, I think, when the sequel came out, and I didn't want to go straight into it. I am currently waiting for copies to come into the library system. So it says on order. So the books are coming, but they have not yet hit the system for me to be able to order it or reserve it. However, I'm really looking forward to reading that one. And I'm going to copy my good friend Andrew Watson with what he does with new releases, which is where if he's talking about a sequel, he will read you the blurb for the original book. So I've got the laptop open here. Let's go through. So the blurb for the original book. Let's have a look. The Pandemonium is a political and trading alliance consisting of roughly 1 million worlds. But they're all really the same world, Earth, in many dimensions, and when an AI threat arises that could destroy everything the Pandemonium has built, they'll just eradicate it by whatever means necessary, no matter the cost to human life. I loved that book. That doesn't really pitch that book to you. I would say it's a much more human story than that. Despite one of the characters kind of being a rabbit. But I really enjoyed this book. I in fact enjoyed it more than I thought I would, and I was like, oh, I'm kind of hyped. I like multiverse stories, especially when they're interesting and they use multiverse for its potential, not as kind of like a shortcut, and to be like, oh, and look, here's this other version of this character, isn't that wacky, sort of thing. Like, that's not interesting to me. But like being like, well, 2,000 years ago somebody stepped on a butterfly and now everyone's a rabbit. That's much more interesting to me. Now, next up after that is another new release that has already released, which is The Failures by Benjamin Lyer. So this came out on the 2nd of July, so almost a month ago. I actually got an arc of The Failures, but I didn't get a chance to read it in advance. So now it's just a reader copy, I guess. It's an RC, not an arc. The Failures is the debut novel from Benjamin Lyer, and so many people have raved about how good it is that it instantly went onto my TBR. I would really like to be able to finish it by the end of the year. Now, let me read you the blurb for this one. From a debut voice comes a genre-breaking blend of apocalyptic sci-fi and epic fantasy about a scattered group of unlikely heroes travelling across their broken mechanical planet to stave off eternal darkness. A tightly coiled puzzle of a thrill ride, The Failures launches the Wonderlands trilogy. So, don't know about you guys, that sounds pretty good. I'm excited about the Failures. Patrick Leo, specifically, I think I watched his review video and he was like properly raving, saying it's like one of the best debuts he's read in forever. And while our taste isn't exactly the same, I often find that when Patrick really loves something, I also really love something. So I'm looking forward to reading The Failures. Next up, we have Mercy of the Gods by James S.A. Corey. So I've never read anything by James S.A. Corey. Literally the next book I'm going to read is going to be a James S.A. Corey book. So I'm going to be reading Leviathan Wakes, the first book in The Expanse. That is the next book I'm going to read as soon as I finish the first binding. And I'm really excited to start that. I'm a bit hesitant jumping into like a 10-book sci-fi series, but people rate it so much that I feel like it's going to really hit for me. And like, I've seen the first couple of episodes of the show, and I really liked the storylines that they showcased. So looking forward to the actual book. Going to read that very soon, probably. I don't know if I'll finish first binding this week because I'm actually making kind of slow going on it. And it's a long book, but next week I will probably get to Leviathan Falls. But what is the Mercy of the Gods about? Now, this is the new series from James S.A. Corey, so I'll probably be more excited once I've read Leviathan Falls to read Mercy of the Gods. But let me tell you what Mercy of the Gods is about. How humanity came to the planet Anjin is lost to the fog of history, but that history is about to end. The Carricks, part Empire, part Hive, have waged wars of conquest for centuries, destroying or enslaving species across the galaxy. Now they are facing a great and deathless enemy. The key to their survival may rest with the humans of Anjin. Caught up in academic intrigue and affairs of the heart, David Alcor is pleased just to be an assistant to a brilliant scientist and his celebrated research team. Then the Carrick ships descend, decimating the human population and taking the best and brightest of Anjin society away to serve on the Carrick's homeworld, and David is swept along with them. They're dropped into the middle of a struggle they barely understand, set in a competition against the other captive species with extinction as the price of failure. Only David and a handful of his companions see past the Darwinian contest to the deeper game they must play to survive, learning to understand and manipulate the Carricks themselves. With a noble but suicidal human rebellion on one hand and strange and murderous enemies on the other, the team pays a terrible price to become the trusted servants of their new rulers. David Alcor is a simple man swept up in events that are beyond his control and more vast than his imagination. He will become the champion of humanity and its betrayer, the most hated man in history and the guardian of his people. This is where his story begins. So, this sounds pretty dope. It's got tags for space opera and fantasy, which sounds brilliant. The pitch for the book is really good. I've heard a lot of fantastic things about James S.A. Corey's writing, and of course they now have like 9 or 10 books under their belt. So whereas when they were doing The Expanse, that's the first kind of collaborative project I think that they've worked on. So it's Daniel Abraham and Ty Frank are the authors of The Expanse. They're James S.A. Corey, and so I feel like now they've got all those books under their belt, starting a new series in this collaborative method, probably going to yield some fantastic results. Next up, we have the sequel to the first binding, The Doors of Midnight by R.R. Verdi. This is out on the 13th of August. I've actually already bought myself a copy. So because I got the broken binding edition of the first binding, I was able to order a broken binding edition of The Doors of Midnight, which I have done. So they've got matching book numbers. And looking forward to receiving that. I haven't even seen what the special edition for that looks like. I'm hoping it just kind of matches the first binding, to be honest, because I think that the artwork on the cover is lovely, and the kind of internal design and the way that the book looks is pretty nice as well. So looking forward to receiving that copy. As with the other sequel books, I will read you the blurb for the first book in the series, which is called The First Binding. All legends are born of truths, and just as much lies. These are mine. Judge me for what you will, but you will hear my story first. I buried the village of Ampur under a mountain of ice and snow. Then I killed their god. I've stolen old magics and been cursed for it. I started a war with those that walked before mankind and lost the princess I loved and wanted to save. I've called lightning and bound fire. I am legend, and I am a monster. My name is Ari, and this is the story of how I let loose the first evil. So, yeah, I'm really enjoying the first binding so far. It's been slow going because there were a couple of bits that I struggled with. I wanted a bit more of where I am now, where I've got more kind of story. Like the book kind of starts with no story, only vibes, and that's not what I'm into at all. I really do want story before you build the vibes again, you know? Hard to describe what I do and don't like about the beginning of first binding. I can still see me really liking this book, and a lot of people have said that this is very familiar if you have read Name of the Wind. And when I was talking to JCM Byrne last week, he actually said that Name of the Wind essentially steals a lot of the steals is the wrong term, uses as its inspiration a lot of the myths and legends from Eastern kind of from the East, as it were, and R.R. Verdi is also taking inspiration from those same myths and legends, and that's why there's a lot of similarity. So far, I am enjoying it. Like I said, I do wish that the story chapter had not been like chapter 3, or it had been a bit further on, so that I could have gotten a bit more of a sense of the characters and the plot, or at least what's going on at the moment. But I would imagine that kind of minor quibble will melt away as we get later on in the book. Next up, we have the fourth book in the Southern Reach trilogy. So, fourth book in a trilogy, interesting, which is Absolution by Jeff Vandermeer. This is out on October 22nd. So, you'll notice I don't actually have any ideas for books that are coming out in September. I know that JCM Byrne is planning on releasing Eyes of Empire at some point this year. I don't actually know when, which is why I didn't include it in this list, because no date. Absolution. So this is the fourth book in the Southern Reach trilogy. I read and enjoyed Annihilation earlier this year, and I'm planning on reading, I think it's called Authority. Yeah, Authority, the second book in the Southern Reach trilogy. I'm planning on reading that pretty soon, probably sometime in August. So that will probably lead me into being able to read Absolution when it comes out, because that will leave me with only one book to read and like a month and a bit to do it. So yeah, hoping to read and catch up so that I can read Absolution when it releases, or maybe later in that month or in November. The reason why I say maybe later in that month is because of the next book. But let me give you the description for Annihilation, which is the first book in the Southern Reach trilogy. Area X has been cut off from the rest of the world for decades. Nature has reclaimed the last vestiges of human civilization. The first expedition returned with reports of a pristine Edenic landscape. The second expedition ended in mass suicide. The third in a hail of gunfire as its members turned on one another. The members of the 11th expedition returned as shadows of their former selves, and within weeks all had died of cancer. In Annihilation, the first volume of Jeff Vandermeer's Southern Reach trilogy, we join the 12th expedition. The group is made up of 4 women, an anthropologist, a surveyor, a psychologist, the de facto leader, and our narrator, a biologist. Their mission is to map the terrain, record all observations of their surroundings and of one another, and above all, avoid being contaminated by Area X itself. They arrive expecting the unexpected, and Area X delivers, but it's the surprises that come across the border with them, and the secrets the expedition members are keeping from one another, that change everything. Now, secrets were probably the thing that I thought were most interesting, kind of the secrets that you learn about the characters as you go in Annihilation. And especially the stuff going on with the psychologist I really liked. So yeah, looking forward to continuing that series. I know that people don't like the following books as much as Annihilation, but because of the way that I felt about Annihilation, it was a bit too dreamlike maybe in some sequences, and I am wondering whether I actually will prefer the sequels. So looking forward to getting stuck into those later this year. Next up, and this is why I was saying I might not be reading the Southern Reach trilogy right away, which is because the next book is Fury of the Gods, coming out on October 24th. This book is one that I will be trying to read on release day. This is the final book in the Bloodsworn saga, as far as I'm aware. Yeah, the final book in the Bloodsworn saga. This is a Norse-inspired fantasy series by John Gwynne. As I said, it comes out on October 24th, so literally 2 days after Absolution by Jeff Vandermeer. So don't think I'll be able to read Absolution in 2 days. Well, I mean, I might do. They are short books in most of the time. Anyway, so I am really, really looking forward to Fury of the Gods. I read Shadow of the Gods and Hunger of the Gods back to back and had a fantastic time. I really especially enjoyed Hunger of the Gods, and so I want to see where this story ends, and that's what we're going to get with Fury of the Gods. I'm going to read to you the blurb for Shadow of the Gods. Set in a brand new Norse-inspired world and packed with myth, magic, and bloody vengeance, The Shadow of the Gods begins an epic new fantasy saga from best-selling author John Gwynne. After the gods warred and drove themselves to extinction, the cataclysm of their fall shattered the land of Vigrid. Now, a new world is rising, where power-hungry jarls feud and monsters stalk the woods and mountains. A world where the bones of the dead gods still hold great power for those brave or desperate enough to seek them out. Now, as whispers of war echo across the mountains and fjords, fate follows in the footsteps of three people: a huntress on a dangerous quest, a noblewoman who has rejected privilege in pursuit of battle fame, and a thrall who seeks vengeance among the famed mercenaries known as the Bloodsworn. All three will shape the fate of the world as it once more falls under the shadow of the gods. Now, you guys, if you've read these books, you know how good they are. They are excellent, and I'm genuinely incredibly hyped to read that next one. Now, there's no new releases that I could find in November that I was super hyped about. However, in December, we have the one, the only, Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson. This is coming out on December 6th. You can actually, if you want, start reading it right now. So, Tor have started posting chapters from the book up on their website. And these are the final chapters from the final finished book, not like final proof or beta reading chapters or anything like that, like Sanderson has read out at conventions and such over the last year or so. This is the actual final, it's going to be in the printed book versions of the chapters. So if you want to, you can start reading Stormlight 5 right now. Today, the first chapter's launched, and they're going to be putting up 2 or 3 chapters a week, I think, up until December the 6th. And those chapters, and it will be, I feel like my friend told me it's going to be a third of the book by the time you get to the book actually coming out. My current plan is to read Elantris in November. So Elantris and the Emperor's Soul are the only Brandon Sanderson things that I have not read in the Cosmere. And once I've read Elantris and Emperor's Soul, to just start reading Stormlight 5, no matter where I am in terms of November, because I can basically read the preview chapters on the website right up until the book comes out and then just swap straight over to the book. I've ordered the audiobook, I've ordered the Kindle book, I've ordered the physical hardcover, so I'm going to be fully decked out for Sanderson reviews, and I'm hoping to read that pretty quickly and get out a review for you guys, so that you can know whether it's worth your time, whether it ends the first arc of the Stormlight Archive well. So I don't think that I need to read the description for The Way of Kings, and honestly, I feel like the Stormlight Archive is the Stormlight Archive the most popular, famous series in fantasy on BookTube? Probably. So it's probably like ACOTAR, Wheel of Time, and Stormlight Archive are like the number one, the top series on BookTube. So I'm not going to bother reading The Way of Kings, and also this video is now almost 20 minutes long, and I don't want to spend way too much of your time just talking about books that haven't come out. So let's finish this video off. Oh, wait a second. I forgot to say. So Wind and Truth, right? The name of Stormlight Archive Book 5. Now, I would just like to say that I think it's a real shame that Sanderson did not have the guts to force his publisher to be like, no, it's going to be the Knights of Wind and Truth. So actually following the naming convention for the books. So if you didn't know about this, the naming convention is that the books are reverse. So basically the first two books were The Way of Kings, TWOK, and Words of Radiance, WOR. Then you had Oathbringer, O, and then the next, the fourth book was Rhythm of War, so ROW, the reverse of WOR, Words of Radiance. So the final book was going to be Knights of Wind and Truth, so like KOWT, which would have then been the reverse of The Way of Kings, but Sanderson kind of chickened out and just called it Wind and Truth. And he said, he was like, oh, if you know, in your heart you can call it the Knights of Wind and Truth or whatever, and I will in my heart be calling it Knights of Wind and Truth. I think Wind and Truth is kind of a rubbish name, to be honest. I'm looking forward to reading the book and seeing if that name fits, because I have felt like for the other four books the name has really fit and been really thematic and strong for the books, but I don't know if it's going to be the same for it's going to be the same for Knights of Wind and Truth, just because, or for Wind and Truth. I wish he'd kept the original title. Anyway, what are you going to be reading 2024 releases for the rest of the year? Have you got anything that you're excited about that I haven't mentioned here that you think that I should be looking into and maybe adding to my TBR? And finally, have you read any great 2024 new releases that I haven't read? I have read Silver Blood Promise and Tainted Cup. And have I read any other 2024 releases? Oh, damn it. I wanted to read one a month. I don't think I've actually read that many more. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, give it a like. And please subscribe as well. Every little subscription helps. We're so close to 800 now. It'd be really nice to hit that 800 mark as soon as possible. It'd be nice to hit every landmark as soon as possible, but let's just start with 800 and work up from there. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll speak to you tomorrow.